your hands together for the topic of the end of apathy, Ellie.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for having me here. And thank you, Hakeem, for the 2 weeks worth of anxiety that you've given me since you asked me to do this talk. So, I guess I'm going to start by telling you guys a little bit about myself. First off, I'm Filipino. I grew up in the Philippines, which, despite all of the political unrest and heavy international criticism we've been getting as of late, is actually a very good place to live in. We were blessed with 7,107 islands and some really beautiful natural resources, which are known worldwide. But I think the beauty of my country lies in places that aren't on the maps. Places that you only get to see if you're lucky enough during one of your travels. Whenever I get to see these places, it always takes my breath away because I get to see how something that's so untouched by human activity can be so pure. Growing up, I spent a lot of time with my aunt and my uncle in an island called Mindoro, which is off the coast of Luzon. Their house sat by a hill, and they had a little farm. So I would wake up in the mornings as a kid and I would be surrounded by fresh air and the sound of chickens and ducks and cows, and it was so simple. And some of my fondest memories are from that island with my relatives because my uncle is actually an environmental activist. So he knew a lot of these hidden places that I was telling you about earlier. And as children, he would take my cousins and I to some of these places, to mountainsides and rivers and lakes. And he instilled such a deep sense of appreciation for nature within all of us because he would teach us how important it is to be respectful of everything that's around you, because if you weren't going to take care of it, chances are other people would be doing the same. And also there were indigenous tribes around the areas that he would take us to, and he'd tell us that this was their home. It wasn't ours, we were just visitors, so we had no right to tarnish anything that was there. I admired my uncle so much growing up because he wasn't working with any big government agencies. He wasn't supported by big NGOs that are known worldwide. It was mostly just himself doing what he could with what he was given. And most of the time, he loses the battles that he chooses to fight. A couple of years back, we went back to this lake right here, and I remember playing around it as kids with my cousins and hearing the silence of everything and just the birds chirping around you. But when we visited it a couple of years back, it wasn't there anymore. It was just mud and sand and a construction site because they were building a big mining company nearby. And these are the types of things that my uncle fights against. But again, he's only one man who tries to get the support of the community around him. So it doesn't always end positively. Most of the time, nobody pays attention, or the people that he talks to don't really care because, there's so much greed these days. And with big companies, they would offer you all sorts of incentives, money, power, just to get to do what they want without any plans for sustainability, any plans to take care of whatever is around them. So I always had a deep sense of admiration for him, and I kept thinking when I was a kid that I wanted to be as brave as him, to keep doing something that I believe in without fear of failing. Somewhere along the way, though, I lost touch of all that. Puberty is not a very easy thing to go through. And I got dragged into school, into university, to my first years of working. I just felt so stressed. And it's not really a good reason to lose touch of anything, but it's what happened. And I chose to put myself in a bubble. I just stopped thinking about the things that really mattered to me when I was younger. And I stopped reading the news, I just stopped caring. I surrounded myself with things that could take my stress away. Like, I was a big fan of BuzzFeed, which, is just reading memes and random news about what celebrities are doing. It didn't really have any substance, but that was what I spent most of my time on. It wasn't until I started working with Friendly Human that I remembered everything that I wanted to be. Friendly Human is a company based in Atlanta, Georgia. We're a content production agency, and it was started by a couple of guys, our CEO and COO, who met while they were creating content for clean water NGOs in Haiti back in 2010, after the devastating earthquake hit them. And that sort of served as a preamble to the type of work that we would really enjoy doing. We work with NGOs and charities like New Story, which is an organization that aims to solve global homelessness by finding innovative ways to create homes for families in impoverished countries. The most interesting about them is that they learned how to 3D print houses, and it's something that they've been doing for various communities. And seeing how they do it is, you marvel at how people could even think of doing something like this. We also work with government-funded institutions in the States, like KDHRC, which is a research organization that aims to improve the health and well-being of the youth, of families, of communities around their area. But I guess one of the projects that really had a huge impact on me is the work that we're doing with the Global Conservation Corps. It's a nonprofit that promotes wildlife conservation worldwide. But right now, most of their efforts are geared towards what's happening in South Africa. It was started by Matt Lindenberg, who's also one of our senior producers in Friendly Human. And working with him has been such a huge honor for me, and I think for my teammates as well, because we see how passionate he is about this cause, and we see how hard he works to achieve their goals. When he was a kid, he grew up next to the world-famous Kruger National Park, where he got a chance to explore it on almost a daily basis. And I always felt jealous of him, because imagine what it must have been like to grow up watching cheetahs and impalas and lions right there in their natural habitat versus how we usually see them, which is in zoos, caged. He also got a chance to meet and spend a lot of time with rangers, field rangers, who are at the forefront of the fight for conservation. I think these people are the unsung heroes of that cause, because they would literally put their lives on the line to save these beautiful creatures, and yet nobody really knows about them. And that's what inspired us to work on Rhino Map, which is a documentary about these field rangers and what they're doing in South Africa. And the goal of it ultimately is to put them on the map, to make people aware of what's happening so they could be urged to do something to help. Rhino Map features Martin Bethy, who is one of Matt's mentors growing up. And he's a very interesting guy, because he was born into an apathy in South Africa, which meant that he had no rights, no opportunities, and no future. But he still held on to the vision that the future of Africa's wildlife belonged to the people. That as long as the people understand that without wildlife their future would be a lot less bright, nothing would happen. So he was Matt's greatest inspiration to establish the Global Conservation Corps, which takes a different approach to conservation efforts. They target the youth. They want to educate the youth as much as they could. They expose them to wildlife, because oddly enough, although these communities live right beside the national reserves in South Africa, they barely see any wildlife throughout their lives, because it's so expensive to actually get to explore them, to organize safaris. So their belief right now is that if we get to educate these young kids at, during their formative ages, they would get a huge sense of care and appreciation for what's around them, so that eventually they would fight for the same causes. They wouldn't be as susceptible to poaching, because the thing is, South Africa is a very poor country, yeah? Most of the time, the high demand for rhinos sort of makes them believe that this is the only way they can support their families. This is the only thing that they could do to survive. They would, instead of taking care of what's around them, they would kill them and sell them for parts. And that's something that is difficult to fight against, because it's their need and greed. And it's something that, if we take it away from them, they think that they won't be able to see through the next day. Right now, a lot of people believe in false myths about rhinos. Like in the Eastern markets, rhino horns are believed to cure cancer. And some people even think that ingesting powder from rhino horns would cure hangovers. And can you imagine how silly it is to kill such beautiful creatures just so you could drink more? It's ridiculous, really. GCC's current efforts are to train the youth to be more involved in wildlife conservation. They engage kids in school. They engage kids in school to learn more about conservation, to explore wildlife, to show them that they have options when they grow up. Because being with nature reserves, you can be a guide, you can write about it, you can do all sorts of activities related to tourism. So they wouldn't have to kill what's around them just to see the next day, like I said earlier. It makes them understand that poaching is something that ties into international terrorism as well. This is one of the biggest information that we're trying to spread worldwide. Wildlife conservation should be something that people even outside of South Africa would care about, because it's happening everywhere. Like we see it here in Malaysia, where Borneo elephants are being killed and they're slowly disappearing because of how poachers are selling the ivory tusks, even though there's not really a big demand for ivory anymore. The biggest challenge, I think, for NGOs these days is how to get people to care, how to bring our message across to them. Digital these days is so powerful in that we have 2.4 billion monthly active users for Facebook alone. And there are thousands of stories that are uploaded on a daily basis that get hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views. And most of these content aren't even really important. So if we could get information, if we could entertain people and get so much attention for who's wearing what or what the Kardashians are doing. Imagine what it would be like if we could use this platform for good. Imagine if a lot of us, as creatives, we as creatives and marketers, we know how to navigate these platforms. We have the talent and we never run out of ideas to talk about what we're passionate about. So if we can find a way to use digital and social media and talk about our cause and get a lot of people involved, I think there's a lot of potential there. It's already happening with the Global Conservation Corps, with what we're doing right now. We don't really expect a big audience from the get-go, because if you do that, you're going to be very, very discouraged. What we do is we just hope We believe in the good of people. We believe that given the opportunity, if we show them enough, if we educate them enough, they would choose to care and they would be urged to do something to help. The thing about storytelling though is it's sometimes difficult to tell people what really matters because there's so much clutter in the digital space these days. Like I said earlier, random stuff gets shared on a daily basis, but none of them really hold any substance. So how do we penetrate each person's bubble, considering that people have the tendency to follow like-minded individuals on social media and everywhere else? It's daunting, to say the least. But also, once we do get into their space, it's a very good foundation to start communities. It's important for us to understand how responsible we should be when it comes to storytelling and what we share. Because you can't tell a story and not give the people all the facts. You can't just frame it how you want it to be seen without telling people the other side of the story as well. When we did Rhino Map, yes, it was about field rangers, yes, it was about conservation efforts, but we also told the story of poachers. We told people about why they were encouraged into poaching and what urged them to do this, to disregard everything else around them just so they could make money. And the goal of that was to humanize the poachers for our audience so that they could understand that it's really not just a wildlife problem, it's a human issue. It shows that greed and negativity is what drives people, and if we can educate people against that, if we can share information that would discourage them from doing these things, it could change the world, one step at a time. Big causes do not start with big audiences from the get-go. Well, GCC was started by just one guy with one thing that he believed in so much that he wanted to do something about it. He didn't have a big group of people supporting him, but like my uncle, he did what he could with what he was given. And now he's managed to get the support of big companies like Garmon and Tissot, all because he was able to share the story of these field rangers. And, I just use this as an example because it's something that really resonated with me. When it comes to sharing information and when it comes to wanting people to care about something, you don't have to just talk about wildlife. You have to think about what resonates within you and what you can share with other people, because whatever your passion for something carries over to whoever you interact with. And as long as we're not afraid to be vulnerable, as long as we're not afraid to show people how much heart we have, I think this will be enough to reach even just one person and get them to want to be involved and want to do something. It's not about being able to raise as much funds as you could, because the tendency is people don't really have a lot of resources to share. It's more about educating people and being able to form a community, because it's communities really that are able to create change. And as creatives, we're passionate about so many different things. I think we can do a lot to help. Thank you. Woo.